Hello, Jack Stetson here. I have some good stuff to say, and I have some bad stuff to say. I'll start with the good stuff, just because we're positive people here. I went to my alma mater yesterday for a panel. Sometimes I do educational panels for students and faculty there, so that I can ask people questions. There were 4 of us there, 4 LGBT-identified individuals. There was a little bad in that, but mostly it was good. I went to a Rainbow Alliance meeting, and I saw a lot of my friends. I picked up these buttons. They have new buttons there. They have, like, this one, Out and Proud. That was nice. They have a trans button there now, which they didn't when I went there. There were a lot of them there, which suggests not that many people have been taking them, so shame on you guys, but they did make the buttons, so that's a good thing. This one's my favorite, though. I'm sure there's some licensing problems with that, but I do like the button. And anyway, so my fasting is going relatively well. I gained back probably all of my water weight because I went to Perkins yesterday for my one meal. And I don't know if it was just the salt content or what, but I woke up 10 pounds heavier than I went to sleep as. But I mean, I still have my belt problems that I told some of you about. So clearly I didn't gain back as much as I thought. So I'm less terrified about the weight loss, which is great. So right now I'm doing relatively well. And I mentioned that I'm doing relatively well because, for a large chunk of the past week or so, I have not been doing well at all. And I figured I'd mention that I don't want to give the impression that I am depressed as I film this, because right now I'm not. I'm actually doing fairly well right now, as I just said. So right now I'm speaking on a purely logical level, and it's as an educational effort for both my friends and other people who happen to stumble upon this video, and that educational effort is that I decided to talk a little bit about dysphoria. And it's mostly for people who want to understand why I and trans men might act a little quirky about certain things like, say, sex. Just a heads up, though. The following may be a little triggering, or maybe a lot triggering, if you are dysphoric yourself, or if you're a self-harmer. And I talk a little bit about sex and bodily functions. So if you're in a bad place or don't want to hear about that stuff, you can leave now. I'll wait. So if you're with me, so I got my period sometime last week, which I assure you is only a little part of the story, because a lot of trans guys get very depressed when they get their periods. But because it's so goddamn female, like, that's one thing it's hard to ignore. But I usually just don't care, because the only thing that ever got to me about getting my period was having to go buy tampons and go in public and basically reveal my femaleness to a store clerk, and I don't have to do that anymore. It's because I have a diva cup. So, whatever. But my problem right now is that I become, like many people, an emotional roller coaster. And becoming an emotional roller coaster does a few things. First, it makes me just generally sad and lonely a lot of the time, which is why I went to my alma mater to begin with. Second, it usually makes me really, really horny, which is connected with the loneliness. It makes sense to me, where desire begets more desire, etc. But there are some problems with that. First, right now, nobody I actually want a relationship with wants a relationship with me. And 2, which is more important, that actually doesn't matter, because I'm currently committed to avoiding relationships for at least 6 months. I call it celibacy, although that isn't quite an accurate way of putting it. But I'm human, and I still get those feelings, and they come out primarily when I'm lonely. When I get horny, though, that's when I get excruciatingly dysphoric. And I never actually defined this, but for those of you who don't know, when a trans person talks about dysphoria, we're usually referring to a crippling discomfort with the structure of our bodies. It varies from person to person and time to time. I don't always feel dysphoric. And there have been years, in fact, where I just generally didn't feel dysphoric. But lately, I've been feeling it more and more, which is why it was so important for me to get to therapy right away. In me, it's concentrated in my chest, my face, and my voice. Those are the three things that cause me excruciating discomfort. Even just talking about it kind of makes me a little uncomfortable. Although, again, I'm doing pretty fine right now. A lot of trans people are very dysphoric in their genital area, which makes sense, but I'm not. I don't see that area often, so it doesn't matter. Another common one is body hair dysphoria, because, I mean, in FMs at least, male body hair is, those patterns are so much different from female ones, and it's something that you see. And I'm saved from that because I have what in women is called hirsutism, which means that I actually have male body hair patterns, which is why I actually have to shave my face, or you'll notice. And if you see some of my other videos where I haven't shaved in a while, I don't get a lot of facial hair, but I do get a big patch right here that you can see in my videos. But, I mean, I'm kind of a furry beast, actually, to put it that way. I have to shave. But, I get lonely, I get back on track, and then I get horny, and I subsequently get very dysphoric because I don't feel sexy. And if you want a visual representation of what this is like, I put a link in the doobly-doo down there. If you want to see, there's a picture that I found on DeviantArt a while ago, which pretty much sums up what dysphoria looks like in a manner of speaking. Like, when I saw it, it really was a good representation of dysphoria. It is not safe for work, though, because it involves a naked trans guy. But anyway, that not feeling sexy makes me miserable in ways that it's really hard to describe. And it's interesting because people like to chalk this all up to vanity, and I'll admit that I'm kind of vain, but the thing is, I don't think that I'm unattractive. In fact, if I were to meet a butch woman who looked exactly like me, I would probably find her ridiculously attractive. I don't think there's anything unattractive about butches, or women with hirsutism, or women my size, but because I'm not a woman, it wrecks all of that for me. So I wind up in bed horny as fuck, but unable to relieve any of that because just the thought of touching my body makes me feel worse. And imagining people touching me, the way that I look and the way that I'm currently structured just makes me feel physically ill. Which is a large part of why I went celibate to begin with. The official story is that I know a lot of trans guys who go on testosterone and then lose their relationships over it in very gritty, very nasty ways, which is true. That is a large part of it, but the larger part of it is that I'm just not comfortable enough with my body to let someone else get close to it. I can only think of actually a select few people who would even have a stone's chance in making me change my mind on that, and even then I think I'd still pass if they were to ask me, because I just have really bad trust issues on that right now.